You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and the interview subject you're about to tune into, his name is Patrik Jensen. He's from the Swedish outfits The Haunted and also Witchery. The reason for the conversation is to promote the band's upcoming dates in Australia with At the Gates. It's headlined 3 bands, 4 nights. Sweden takes over Down Under. Hard to argue with that. And the 4 dates that I've got are as follows. It's 24th of April, they're playing in Canberra. The 25th, Anzac Day, they're playing in Brisbane. On the 26th, they're playing in Sydney. And finally, there's a show in Melbourne on the 27th. So let's hear what Patrik has to say. Here we go. How's things?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. It's 6 a.m. down here, mate. And it's very...
I'm sorry, man.
That's fine. I'm up anyway with my kids, so it's no dramas at all, mate. I pick these times, so it's no dramas whatsoever. You know, it's what I don't know what it's, mate. We've had just months and months of bullshit hot weather, and this morning is the first morning I've got up and I've actually had to put on a dressing gown, which means that it must be lower than 20 degrees. So mate, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, we've had a very cold winter, and the spring was here, and the bushes start budding, I think you say.
Yeah.
And this morning we woke up to fresh snow. Like, no, it's coming back. I mean, let's bring some summer finally.
Oh God, yeah. Well, when's the tour down here, mate? It's not too far away, is it? Is it next month?
No, it's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, gosh, yeah, I knew it was very close. It was on the very near horizon. But mate, when you come down here, have you got much time off, or is the tour just you've got the dates and then you're back home?
We land in Sydney and we have a day off on arrival because the jet lag and everything. And then we also have the Haunted has a day off in Melbourne when At the Gates goes to Tasmania.
Oh God,
so
yeah, okay, that's freezing down there.
Yeah, so that's about the only time off we have. I wish we had more time off because we're playing Brisbane, right?
Yeah, well, that's where I'm from. Yeah. So Brisbane, yeah. So that's
that is my favorite city. I just wanted to get that in there.
Oh, sweet, cool. Yeah, what do you like about it so much?
The whole Perth is kind of similar to Brisbane with the climate and the beaches, palm trees, and everything, but Perth is so far away. I mean, Brisbane is a more happening city, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that. Perth is so isolated. I think I'm right in saying it's the most isolated capital city on the planet. And look, that doesn't mean too much these days because of the way the internet has brought us so close together. But you've still got a bit of an isolated feel over there, and they're very proud over there of being Western Australians because that's a state. You see, which is almost about as Western Australia as a state is about as big as half of Europe.
Right.
It's mostly desert. Of course. So there's only that's the thing about Australia, mate. You're probably aware. There's just we all live in only a few capital cities because you can't live anywhere else. The environment is just too harsh to support human population.
Right, and I mean, I remember the first time we went there back in 2003, it was, already back then people were talking in Australia, they were talking about climate change and that there was no rain and there was no fresh water to be had. And, and now everyone is talking about climate change. And I can only imagine how it is, in the hotter parts of Australia.
Oh, it's I'm definitely not a climate change denier. I'll put that out there now. I certainly believe in climate change. But, the thing about Australia is when we go back through history, and we've only been keeping records for a bit over 100 years, can you believe it? So not very long at all.
Right.
We've always had periods where the problem with Australia is the temperatures are so extreme. It can be really hot for a period of time, but then when it rains for like weeks at a time. So, of course, then it floods. So it's like there's massive extremes constantly happening, and and I think people sort of wonder why in Australia, why do so many of us live in suburban environments? Well, because we can't bloody live anywhere else. It's too hard,
right?
And the people that do live out in the bush, they're very hard people. It's a bit like people who live up north in Sweden and Norway, I suppose. It's a very, very harsh climate.
The Laplanders, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
The Sami.
The Sami. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It sort of breeds toughness, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Mate, we better talk about this tour, and look, I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure you can imagine down here a lot of people are, because we don't get to see Witchery. I don't even think we've seen Witchery down here at all, have we? So
No, this the first time. Yes, I'm very excited.
yeah, and mate, we are, and you're pulling double duty though, because of course you're a foundation member of both bands, being Witchery and The Haunted, and I think I counted it correctly. You've got about 15 or 16 albums worth of material to cull songs from for both bands. So how do you pick a set list when you're coming this far?
Well, it is actually pretty hard, but that's also, I mean, well, it's a pleasant, what do you say, pleasant,
Nice problem to have.
nice problem to have. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we did the first, because the first Haunted album, it really took off. We won the best newcomer lists all over the place, and we ended up doing headliner tours straight away. And we only had one album, so we had to fill out the shows with. We played one At the Gate song because back then 3 guys were from At the Gate, so we played Blinded by Fear. And then we played a Witchery song, actually. So we played The Reaper. Can you imagine that?
Nice. Yeah.
Just to fill up the set. Yeah, but, it's a nice problem to have. So, yeah. And actually, as we speak, I just got off my music recording computer, and I'm writing the next both Haunted and Witchery albums, actually. So there's going to be even more material soon.
Mate, nice. Yeah, and look, I'm in my 40s, right? So I've been around a long time. I've seen the metal resurgence that happened, and I really do think. I remember reading Terrorizer and Metal Maniacs back in the day. Remember those magazines?
Yeah.
Especially Metal Maniacs. Sorry, I know Terrorizer's
Yeah.
probably still going, but yeah, and I remember reading about the Haunted's debut album. And then, of course, the first album from Witchery. They were about the same time, about 1998, 1999. And it was around about that time, especially with the Haunted's album coming out, that there was that resurgence. Heavy metal started to become something that wasn't so much of a dirty word as far as the regular rock and metal fan was, the regular rock fan was concerned. You know what I mean? Like the 90s, for people who weren't there, it's very hard to articulate how underground metal went, isn't it?
I remember actually because of, I don't know what it is with that album. I mean, we weren't aiming at doing anything, special. We just played the music that we wanted, and for some reason, it started kind of. I don't want to sound like a jerk to say that it started at thrash, regenerating the thrash scene, but because of that album, there was a lot of interest in thrash all of a sudden, and all these classic bands that were just living in the shadows, like the classic bands, they started to come back, and now they are massive, and they are legacy bands now, and they will always play festivals and so on, which is great. So and maybe it was bound to happen. Maybe we were just right in time. We just happened to release the album, with perfect timing. But definitely it was great to be part of that whole, new
The resurgence,
second or third or fifth wave of thrash.
Yeah, I mean, it really kicked everything off. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying this, but Carcass got together not too long after that. Certainly At the Gates did. And I really do think that the Haunted should be credited with that, because it was an underground movement. That it was the first time I started to see like pretty normal looking people, if you know what I'm saying, like non-metal people wearing heavy metal band T-shirts. Is the first time I started to see a lot of Haunted T-shirts around, even here, mate, in Sydney and Brisbane. I started to see it, mate. So, mate, you got to be credited with that. So well done for that. It's and it's still, mate, that first album holds up, and Witchery, I always enjoyed, because I don't know whether this is the right descriptor, but I always liked the fact that there was a bit of a black and death thing going on there, black and thrash thing going on there, and I think that might have opened up the gateway to black metal for some fans who otherwise might have ignored it.
Perhaps. I think also Dimmu played a big role because they had the bombastic theatrics. So they kind of brought in, maybe people who just want, or not just wanted, but enjoyed the whole atmosphere and everything. So, and they were around the same time as well. I think Witchery is a nice, for me, of course, because I write the music. I like that blend between, maybe Accept mixed with black metal and some destruction in there, and maybe something that sounds even Dio era Sabbath and lots of Merciful Fates. So it's actually people ask me when I write music, how do you know which riff goes where? I always start out writing for Witchery because Witchery is more of a musical playground for me, and with Haunted there's like it's this, Haunted is the bigger band than Witchery, so there's a lot more expectations on Haunted. So Witchery is freer, and expectations is what gives you writer's block. And like you said, how many albums, 15, 16 or whatever, you're bound to hit the writer's block eventually. And with always writing for Witchery, I have the lower threshold. Not to say that Witchery is has less quality. It's just in your mind. So it's easier to write riffs, and then all of a sudden, when I have 2 or 3 Witchery riffs, I have maybe 1 Haunted riff for free, because this is way more Haunted. Yeah, so then I just keep it for the Haunted, so I get those Haunted riffs for free.
Hey, and in my view, you've got probably the greatest modern heavy metal bassist in your band, being Charlie D'Angelo. Yeah, I mean,
he's a beast.
Yeah, look, I'm a bassist, and I really admire what he does. I saw him on stage not too long ago, when Arch Enemy came down here for Download, and I had a chat to Alisa before she came down with that, and I said, what's it really like being up on stage there with him? And she's like, oh God, I mean, Elisa's a superstar in her own right, as you know, but she's like, I'm standing there on stage and I just have to sort of pinch myself because I've got Charlie D'Angelo. And a lot of people who aren't musicians don't understand his impact, if you like, on heavy metal and on bass playing in heavy metal. But my question for you, mate, is that when you're writing stuff for Witchery, do you have him in mind as a bassist from time to time, just to let him do his thing? Or do you just got to give him the riffs and go, man, bit like Steve DiGiorgio and all the bands that he works in, you just go, man, you do your thing and I know you're going to make it sound great.
Well, he's actually Charlie is very knowledgeable. He's a very smart guy. He's also very funny, and he's very well read on the music history, and he knows all the bands, and he's very good at when you write music. He always comes up when you. He might not write the actual music, but he's a very good catalyst. So I'm stuck with this riff. We'll throw in some Schenker stuff, kind of like this, and he does something, and then and you sit there for a few minutes, and then something pops up. He's a really, really good. What's the word? Inspirer.
Yeah, I
inspiration.
Understand what you're saying. Yeah. Because he's so smart.
And he has this way. He knows because we've been friends for so long. He knows what is stopping me or blocking me. So he knows what to do something like this, and just because he plays it, I hear it from a different source than my own fingers, and they go, but that is pretty good, Okay, so so he's really good to have around, and I love the kind of Geezer Butler style that he has. He does all the that little, people praise Tony Iommi with All Right, but there's a lot of to the Black Sabbath sound should be credited to Geezer. So Charlie has that, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, I try to describe his bass playing to people, but it's like when Geezy was playing the bass line to TV Crimes, you talk about Dio era Sabbath. He's kind of like, all of his stuff reminds me a lot of that. It's very melodic. It's very melodic, but it's still heavy at the same time. It's like that good midpoint between everything, and you can hear the bass. He's one of the few metal bass players where there's a bit like Bob Daisley as well from the Aussie band. You can hear what's going on, but it doesn't detract from the heaviness.
Right. I mean, I think you and I must be the same age because Bob Daisley, Bark at the Moon era is my favorite Ozzy era.
Yeah.
And and the Dio era Sabbath. I mean, Live Evil is what.
Yes.
When I heard that as 12 or whatever I was, it was just the best thing I've ever heard. How evil is this? And that probably laid the foundation for my. My love for live albums. There's just this rawness about it. So I because I love live music or live albums, I prefer much more feeling over perfection. Because what is perfection? These days people sit with Pro Tools and everything is cut and perfectly neatly ordered, but that's just arranging around the clock. It needs to be the musicians, breathing and the organic feel. That's what I like about old thrash, because you feel the band almost struggling, and you get to like, come on, But nowadays everything is just so linear. So I like when you hear the sweat and the aggression, I guess.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with Michael Beinhorn, the producer who worked with Ozzy and Korn. He did Korn's Untouchables, I think, and that's one thing I said to him. I said, look, because I think I rate him as a producer. I think he's an extraordinary producer. He's worked with Courtney Love and Marilyn Manson, and all of those albums have, I wouldn't say, they only have him in common from the perspective that he's a producer on them, but they all sound like the musicians know what's going on. They don't sound overly processed, and I said to him, because that's my thing these days with a lot of these young fellas and girls coming through in the metalcore and deathcore bands, is that they're bloody processing the life and out of the spirit of their music,
Yeah.
And it's like they're so concerned with making it sound like bloody Metallica's Death Magnetic, which I think is a horrible album, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I do too.
I can't listen to it. I honestly can't listen to it at all. But I constantly hear, because I get 10, 15 new releases a week, and a lot of them are metalcore and deathcore. And I do try to listen to it all. Believe me, I do, because I'm a passionate music fan. But a lot of it, man, I'm like, guys, just take a step back. Inhale, exhale, and just allow you guys as musicians to blend a little bit more, rather than putting it through a DAW, a DAW, and trying to squeeze the life out of it and make it sound brutal.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if I were to get 10, 15 albums a week, or I would probably jump in front of a train or something, because I've seen the other side of the music industry. I've been in the studio, put together. It's probably over a year I've been in the studio. And, so you kind of lose the magic, that there's retakes and, there's so much. If I pull out an old Rainbow Rising, it's still magic to me.
Cozy Powell.
Yeah. I mean, that album might be the best album ever. But, if you pull out an album today, you hear everything that's been going on. Maybe pop songs is auto-tune, or, so it just, I've seen behind the scenes, so I've lost that magic. And B, when albums come out sounding so corrected, perfect, according to a clock in a computer, then, I wouldn't be able to listen to that much new music, because it's probably a sign of me getting old and not understanding today's music. But I like it when you just like you say, when it's organic, and the musicians can kind of, every take is kind of different. And so there's a reason to make different takes and, to choose the best take.
Well, a lot of these bands aren't actually bands. They're one or two people that do everything, and then they've just got a photo shoot where they've got 4 or 5 people standing there. But typically it's a drummer and a guitarist who does the vocals as well, or something. You know what I mean? It's always it's always usually that sort of combo. But I don't know, the genre of deathcore and metalcore, I do enjoy it. I'm not a detractor at all. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on there, particularly with deathcore, with the stuff like Die Artist Murder and Carnifex and a lot of that stuff that's around. And they're good bands, by the way. They're not included in what I'm saying, but I just, especially the young people, just to your point, man. Get a hold of Rainbows Rising and listen. Man, listen to Richie's interplay there with Cozy, because I think Cozy is the greatest drummer of all time. And just listen to Cozy Powell and just watch his videos and watch the way he holds the drumsticks. It's so musical. It's just so incredibly musical, and you can be not copy it, but be inspired by it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so sad that he passed away too early. And you know the story behind it, I'm sure.
I do. He's driving his Saab and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and
he had a few beers and he was seeing someone's wife, and that woman called and said, I'm being beaten up, and he jumped in the car, and
he wanted to figure things out. I know. Look, I maintain, and I'm in the minority here, but you hear through the grapevine and through very credible sources, I might say, that he was in line to replace John Bonham in Led Zeppelin. And, mate, I think, well, if there's one person that could have done it, he's the only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
He or Lee Kerslake, I think, could have done it as well. Poor old Lee, who's on his last legs, I hear, which is a bloody shame, especially what he went through with the Osbournes there, and no royalties and all the rest of it from those two fabulous albums that Ozzy released initially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mate, I think that's it. Man, oh God, there's heaps of things I can talk to you about. It's so cool to talk to you, man, because I can tell you're a passionate music fan and you're in two great bands.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, you will be at the show, I'm sure, so we should... are you going to be there to do, during the day for interviews or something?
I try to be. The problem for me is that I'm actually I'm in my 40s, as I've alluded, and I'm at uni full time, but I've also got two kids, so it's just hard to get out, man. And so I try to support the bands whenever I can to come through, man. So I'm very likely to be at the show. So, man, if we can catch up, it'd be awesome to have a beer.
Absolutely, yeah. If you see me, because I usually walk around, especially since there's At the Gates is after us, so I'll be out. And if you see me, just walk up to me and grab a hold of me.
Oh, thank you very much.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be very kind, very good to have a beer with you, mate, and shake your hand. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Thanks very much, mate.
All right. Take care, man.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Catch ya. You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that interview subject was Patrik Jensen from the Swedish outfits The Haunted and also Witchery. Thank you so much for listening.